I've been having this conversation with people, and it's been really disturbing to me, like how terrified people are of this entire conversation. We're going to cover all these things, so don't panic. I'm here for you. So I'd like to start with how the talk got its title, because that's pretty bold, but this is what happened to me. I was at a Drupal event. Yeah, I'm calling you out, Drupal. I was at a Drupal event with a colleague who wanted to introduce me to a potential client. We were having a conversation with someone who, at the end of the talk, obviously couldn't remember my name. And so he said, "It's so good to see diversity here." And I was like, what? And in my frustration, I actually turned and pointed at the black guy to my left and the Asian guy to my right and said, "Did he say that to them?" He spent the rest of the night trying to catch my eye and figure out why I was like. Now, the next thing that happened, that I'm going to tell you about, actually happened before that. I had two separate groups of people come up to me and ask me how you mentor minorities. And I sort of didn't really understand the question, because in my mind, how do you mentor anyone? So that's kind of how this story got its talk. Now, that wasn't super painful, but here's a slot. People get really upset when you start talking about race and ethnicity, and so I wanted to kind of cover a few things. Let's talk about diversity. Diversity doesn't mean black. We're getting right out of the way. This is what it means. It actually means that you would be hiring people with different backgrounds, people who have worked different types of jobs in different industries, people who have experience and can think outside of the box. So instead of just hiring a bunch of, no offense, white guys who went to the same schools and were part of the same fraternities and know all the same people, you are hiring people who have different backgrounds. It's so frustrating, and the reason it's frustrating is because I feel like this whole conversation has really become about, like, we need more black people, or we need more Latinos. It's so much bigger than that, and that's what I'm trying to share. So that's why my example down here is there's more plant life. So when you go into the jungle, there isn't one plant. There isn't one type of plant. I think they haven't even fully classified all of the plants. Beetles have not yet been classified because there's so many of them. Well, we're kind of on the same level with diversity. There are so many people with so many different varied backgrounds. We haven't even fully classified all of that yet in technology, and we should probably get on that. This is why it matters, though, which I just covered. But the bottom one is very important. So in a global marketplace, you're dealing with China, you're dealing with countries in Africa, and you don't have anybody that looks like them. Your customers want people who they can relate to. And that's very important. It's not just about the people that work for you. It's also about the people that you work for. So bearing in mind that, yeah, in a global economy, just having a company filled with white men is not working. And a lot of companies are really not getting that. So increased perspective, connection, inclusion, these are reasons why diversity matters. This is why it's really important. I love women of color in tech, so anytime that you would like to use pictures for your slides, just as a quick aside, please feel free to go to their website. They have photographs that you can use that are completely inclusionary with women of various ethnic backgrounds. It's pretty awesome, so I just wanted to throw that in there. Now I want to talk about mentoring. I think that one of the things that we really fall into as a huge trap with mentoring is the part where we think it's got to be really formal. And it doesn't have to be really formal. The most important part about mentoring is to remember what it means. It means that you are a trusted counselor or guide. Somebody is on a journey, and you are there to participate, facilitate making their journey easier by remembering what it was like when you were on your journey. You did not walk into technology knowing everything. You did not, the very first time you tried to code Python, know exactly how to do it. Anybody remember the first time they tried to code Python? It was mildly terrifying, and nothing worked, and you didn't know why it was broken, and then some guy was trying to explain to you why it wasn't working, and nothing he said made any sense. And then it worked, and then you weren't 100% sure why it worked. That's our job. Our job is to help people figure out why it worked so they can do it again, and then they can do it again, and then they can feel successful, and then they can go get jobs, and then we have a diverse workforce. Yay! These are the possible impacts, and these are the things that I want people to think about. It isn't just about the other person. Part of the reason that this matters is when you are enriching lives, you have to think about how you're enriching lives. So what are you offering people that they might need? Well, the best way to find that out is to ask them, and I think that's one of the big barriers as well in mentoring, is we're making the assumption someone just needs to learn JavaScript or Python or SQL. We need to go deeper than that. Why? Why do people want to learn? How long have they been trying to learn? What kind of barriers have they had along the way? To be a good mentor, we need to know the impact. We can grow from our relationships with people we mentor as much as they can grow. That increased self-confidence, that's for both parties. When I teach someone something and they respond to me with, "Oh my God, I totally didn't understand that before. Thank you so much for making that make sense." Now I'm excited because they know how to do it. Not just because I taught them, but because I made it so accessible for them that they can do it themselves and they don't have to ask someone for help or sit in frustration for 3 hours waiting for someone to answer their question, which is terrible. The new friendships that could last a lifetime. My mentor was actually a teacher at my boot camp. Not my teacher, unfortunately. My teacher was, he's a fantastic developer. He's been around for 30 years. He really knows his stuff. But he's not very good at explaining things. So he would explain something to me, and I wouldn't understand, and then I would go and ask her, and then she would explain things to me. And I would go, "Oh, yay, now I get it." I was then empowered to go forward and keep learning and then teach other people. That's the whole point of mentoring. So again, when you ask me a question like, how do you mentor a minority? The first thing I think is, how do you mentor anyone? And that's the circle that we need to think about. How do you mentor anyone? These are some of the potential mentors, barriers to mentoring that some of my delightful friends on Twitter were kind enough to answer when I asked them. Assumptions is a big one, and I want to cover that because I was in a talk yesterday at another conference that kind of frustrated me, where they kept talking about how important it is to talk about inner city children and poor children who don't have access to resources. And I would just like to really remind people, you also have people who have resources but don't know how to utilize them. When you have middle-class kids who are not white, who have resources, they have computers, they have access to computers, but if they don't know how to use them, you still have the same problem. This is still a huge barrier. These kids can't go on and get CS degrees because they don't know enough. They don't have a guide. They need help too. So really just paying attention to when you make an assumption about someone based on their ethnicity, you're already creating a huge barrier. Ask questions. Get to know the person. The most important part about mentoring is finding common ground. Find one thing. You need one thing. My mentor is really interesting. You wouldn't think on the surface that we would have anything in common whatsoever. She's a 30-something motorcycle riding lesbian. Guess what? We both love musicals. We are literally lifelong friends now. I don't go to her for any mentoring, but when I see her, we are both so filled with love and joy because we have really just changed each other's lives and enriched each other's lives because the friendship that we have developed based on me just saying, you know, I really don't understand this and I need help, and her being able to share that with me, worth me going, I'm kind of feeling really dumb right now and I don't know how to do this. And that's the biggest challenge. Don't wait for someone to come to you and ask you for help because they're feeling really dumb right now and they're really embarrassed. So these are some of the answers that I got when I asked on Twitter if you would mentor someone from a different background. And you see, I didn't use POC because I'm also thinking about someone who's trans or someone who's disabled. What about someone who's deaf? These are all things that we don't necessarily think about when we think about people with challenges. I think this is a good one. And my advice for mansplaining and whitesplaining is, please don't do it. Think about it. When you're listening to someone's experience, don't explain it to them. Listen to their experience, absorb what they're saying. Do not explain someone else's experience to them. No, but wait, okay, hold on. What I think you meant to say, no, don't do that. Because you have now completely devalued everything that they just told you, and you are basically taking their story and putting your spin on it. Not okay. Completely not okay. Let them tell their story. Listen to their story. Share your story. Done. This is the most important part. I have people who approach me and say they want to mentor. If you want to mentor, do it. Find a way. Because intentions are fantastic. But if you don't follow through, you're not helping anybody. If you have knowledge and you want to share it and you want to change the world, this is how we do it. We stop just going, oh, well, I intended to do that someday. Someday is today. This is the most important part. Really, going back to assumptions, taking the time to get to know someone is so valuable. Of course you're judging people. We're all judging people. But just remember that a lot of times we're judging based on stereotypes that we're seeing that may have absolutely no basis in reality, and we need to just stop, take a step back, and look at people and realize everybody has a story. Everybody has a story that's important, and we need to know their story because their story helps us grow and change, and that's pretty amazing. Bunny. Other people like cat photos, and I'm allergic to cats, so I wanted to use other animals. So when I was thinking about allies, because ally is a big word right now, it's a huge buzzword, again, I wanted to not just think about people of color. I have friends who are trans, I have friends who are deaf, I have friends who are blind. I wanted to think about any of those people and what kind of barriers they may have. Being an advocate for someone who is in a position where they need more help, greater resources, these are the things that we need to know. And it's all of us. This is a challenge for everybody. We all have to stop and think about, how can I best serve this person for their greater good that will make me a better person, but really serves them and helps them get to where they need to go. And I will post my slides, so you'll be able to get to this link. But I thought that this was a really good article to help allies and advocates kind of get a better idea of what we're talking about when we say, we want you to stand up for us. In the incident where I was called diversity, the person who introduced me to him giggled nervously. So now I'm uncomfortable with this person who called me diversity and this person who has told me that they wanted to ally, who I considered a friend, who went, So now I'm awkward on so many levels that I'm once again the only uncomfortable person in the room. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, those of us who have spent our lives being the only uncomfortable person in the room, we're done with it. We're not okay with it anymore. We're gonna make you uncomfortable, and it's not really because we want you to be uncomfortable, it's because we're tired of you being okay with us being uncomfortable. Brian, hi Brian. Brian's in the back. And he gave my favorite answer. This is the point. This is the whole thing. He totally got exactly where I was going with it, and he didn't make it about himself, which I thought was fantastic. I loved that he completely saw, this is the point. The point is that if we can help other people, if you have the ability to help other people, whether that's donating your money, donating your time, this is what we should do. So here are some of the keys to being a good mentor. These are all of the things that I was able to experience with my mentor, whose name is Paige. I had some really hard days when I was in my boot camp. I worked my way through. It was 3 months. I was very tired a lot. But knowing that I had a safe space where I could, some days you just actually have trouble peopling, let alone trying to learn code. Knowing that I had a person that I could go and say, I just need a human today. Can you be my human today? Was beyond measure. She was an advocate for me when I had problems with my teacher. She would go in and just say, hey, I know that you think that this is making sense, but this is kind of a struggle right now, and maybe you could think of, like, is there a different way we could work through this to try to get this curriculum down for her better? She created opportunities for me by inviting me to different events, and then I was actually also the speaker coordinator for Women in Text JavaScript Night. So that was awesome. I had the opportunity to network, meet new people, and then sit through these amazing talks about JavaScript where I had the chance to learn more from people who know more than I do. And the last one is really the most important. She was patient, she was kind, she was caring, and she was always respectful. She was always aware that in the end, it was about my learning process and not hers. So she would share stories with me, but she was never like, oh yeah, you should definitely hurry up and learn this, or why haven't you learned this yet? She never measured me against herself. And that was incredibly helpful because I was already like, I'll never be as good as you. You've been doing this so long. I have no idea what I'm doing, and felt completely hopeless. I do SQL every day in my boot camp. I avoided SQL and taught myself Ruby because I thought SQL was terrible. The irony is not lost on me. Mentoring doesn't have to be formal. You don't have to sit down and create a contract and sit and talk about, like, well, this is what I'd like to learn. Well, okay, that's great. I can totally help you learn that. It can be completely informal. It can be short. It can be 3 months. It can be a year. It can be a lifetime. There are services where you can pay for mentoring, which feels a little bit weird to me, but I know people who do it and have been very successful with it. I also know people who do it and haven't been very successful with it. I think the idea of paying for a mentor where things don't work out, I think that would be very, very painful, and it's something to be mindful of. People are having to pay for mentors because we're reaching out in the community and no one's reaching back. And that's huge to me. We shouldn't have to pay for something that should be available. When you go to a meetup the next time, strike up a conversation with somebody that you've never seen before. It might be their first time, they might be feeling really shy, they don't know what to do, they don't understand anything, they have never touched Python, they don't know command line. There's so many things. Like, you teaching someone command line could change their entire life. So think about what it was like for you at the beginning, and just remember that's where those people are, and they just want to learn and move forward. Feedback was something that when I gave this talk last time, a couple of people mentioned. And the most important things about feedback, really, be open to it yourself and don't be waiting to say something. Give the person an opportunity to tell you, okay, we're having a little problem, I feel like we're not communicating well. Understand, they're not talking about your personality. They're not saying, I hate you and you're terrible. They're saying, okay, I feel like we're just not quite communicating the way that we need to, and thus neither one of us is getting out of this what we need to. And I think that's a big thing. If you aren't getting what you need from the experience, then the experience isn't working. But it doesn't mean you have to just say, this experience is over. If you can find a way to make it work, we do it in relationships, right? We stay with somebody longer than we should, or we remain friends with somebody way past the expiration date. Why can't we do the same when we're helping people? Okay, we're having some communication issues. Let's work through this. Let's make this work for both of us. Because the point is always, how are we enriching that other person? How are we helping them? How are we pushing them forward? And if our goal is to serve other people and help make them better, then we should never just be like, oh, she didn't understand anything I said, I gotta go. That should never be the answer. And I want to say for myself, because I've experienced this, feedback should be timely. Don't wait. If there is something that's happening, the person's not following the tutorial, they're not listening to any of your advice, talk to them about it immediately. Don't wait 3 months, 6 months. Do you remember that time 6 months ago that I told you to go to that event and you didn't go? That's why you didn't get a job. Don't do that. That's terrible. But I've seen this happen. You know, like, okay, so you didn't go to that event last week that we kind of talked about. What happened? then you give them the opportunity to say, I wasn't feeling good, I had a family emergency, I'm sorry I didn't have the chance to talk to you about that. There are reasons usually why people don't do things. I was afraid, I had an anxiety attack. Give them the opportunity to explain what was going on, because that's a totally different thing than just, well, I just didn't go. I don't know, 6 months ago? You told me to go to a thing. Why didn't I go? I don't know. And remembering that the people who need mentors, these are people who don't necessarily have the same access as the rest of us. A lot of us grew up in very middle class, very suburban families. I had a computer. I didn't know what to do with it, but I had one. So thinking about it is so much deeper than just these are people without access. These can be people who have access and not resources. I find computer books very hard to read. I find them very dry. I have not finished a single one yet, although goodness knows I have tried. So for me, it's a very visual thing. If you give me a tutorial and I can walk through it and I can get an end result, I'm great. Not everybody works that way. So try different things when you're working with someone. Some people may need tutorials. Some people may devour CS books, though goodness help them. Everybody has a different learning style, and that's an important part to remember about mentoring as well. You are there to teach, to lead, to guide. We want to empower people to be able to do that as well, so the next person who needs help also has access. So it's this big circle of we're all just here to support and to care and give kindness, because not just in the tech community, but in the world right now, we could all use a little more kindness and a little bit more human care. I got to ride into this morning holding someone's hand, and you know what? Honestly, that was lovely, and it made my whole morning better. These are the little things. I'm not saying you should hold your mentee's hand, but if they want that, then that's okay. But just remembering, we don't know at the beginning what's going on in people's lives, and the smallest kindness that you can show someone is already helping them. And if that's the least thing that we do, is to show someone kindness by smiling or offering them help, then I think that's a great place to start. These are some places that you can volunteer. I have volunteered for Django Girls. Hey, Django Girl! So if you actually do want to volunteer for Django Girls, go see Nathan and Tyrion. It's a great organization that actually teaches you how to build a little app with Django, which is a Python-based framework. To me, I think the whole idea is when people say they can't find places to volunteer, that took me 5 minutes. That entire list I jumped online. Where can you find a place to, I mean, like, I think I just, like, women coding volunteer. And like that, instantaneously. These were like the top 5 hits. Still can't find him? Call me, I'll help you. Giving your time, I get it. I don't have a lot of time. A lot of us don't. But these are organizations that I'm actually a member of, PyDX Wit and Django Girls and Chick Tech. It's important to remember that anybody can mentor. You don't have to be, I have helped people. I help people at my job. I'm still one of the newer people, but if I know something and one of my coworkers reaches out and asks me for help and I know the answer, I will take the time to walk them through it. Because I remember how that felt when I didn't know how to do it. We focus a lot on girls, and I'm so pro like girls coding, that's awesome. But there's also this entire group of people, again, we're talking about those middle people. There's an entire group of women in their 30s and 40s who are now wanting to come into the tech industry. There's a lot of us. The end of my boot camp, I turned 40. So remember that these are people who wanted to be in the tech industry and may have been strongly discouraged They need help too. Yes, girls code, awesome, so good. I 100% support it. But Django Girls, these are women who are in their 30s and 40s who want to learn about Python, and they want to build an app with Django, and you have the opportunity to walk them through that and make them successful. And at the end, their joy, that's what it's all about. Because you felt that good when you built your first app, now you get to help them build their first app. This is some really cool stuff, and I strongly encourage you to, if you don't check out any of these others, I strongly encourage you to check out Django Girls, because honestly, that was one of the best experiences I've ever had. So, does anybody have any questions for me that they don't want to write on a card? Okay. Imposter syndrome is a thing. That's very real. But evaluate your level. Evaluate what they're asking you for. I definitely don't feel like I could give somebody a strong tutorial on Python, but I could absolutely walk someone through Django, because I've done it. I've done Django enough that I feel very confident about that. Evaluate your skills. And if you aren't the right person for that, but you know someone who is, reach out to that person and ask them if they're available, because then you might get to learn too. So, but imposter syndrome is real, and we'll talk about that later. Like, that's a whole other talk. I agree. I think it's the same thing, just practicing kindness and just, hey, I was in this talk the other day and it made me think of you. Can I share the slides with you? Or can we sit and talk about this, some of the things that I learned? I think having conversations about it is great. My mentor didn't want to mentor me, actually, at the beginning. When I first originally used the word mentor, she went, ah! I'm like 5 years older than she is. And she felt like, because my background is so much more varied than hers job-wise, she was like, but you have so much more experience than I do in a lot of ways. And I was like, but I need to know how to code, and you know how to code, so this is what I'm asking you for. You are giving me a gift by sharing your knowledge. And when I put it to her like that, that kind of changed things, because in her mind, again, she was thinking like, this is such a formal thing, and we're signing a contract. And it was really just like, can you hold my hand while I do this? Because this feels very scary to me. So I think gently encouraging people and reminding people that they have skill sets beyond what they think they do. And that's true for the person that you'd be mentoring as well. Start with that. I don't think that anybody really I don't think it's possible to walk into this industry without some sort of background or experience that you have had that made you want to be a part of it. I started programming when I was 13. I did it for just a couple of months in a class. I thought it was great. And then anytime I said, I think I like math, I think I want to do more computers, I'm really interested in science, everybody was like, oh, but you're a girl and you're pretty and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, so? And it was really just, I'm 40, so that generation, we were really, really the less attractive girls could be into science and math and all that stuff. But if you were even remotely pretty, in their eyes, automatically you were sort of just like, oh, you should go do art, or didn't you want to take fashion, or you should just stick with music. But I like all of those things. I like to dress pretty and do code. And I think, just remembering those experiences, everybody has a great skill set. What's yours? Share that with people. We don't just need mentoring in code or technology or with our job. We're getting through life every day. So anything that you can bring to the table or your friend can bring to the table, your story matters. It's so important. And I think we all just really forget that part, but I care about what you have to say, always. I may not always fully understand it or relate to it, but your story matters to me. To me, it's important. And so I want to know what you have to offer, and then I want to share what I have to offer, and then let's work it out. Let's figure out how we can help each other just be better humans, better programmers, better whatever. I think that's totally the way to go. Anybody else? You don't have to. You can write it on a card, or you don't even have to talk to me the rest of the day, I swear. I have stickers of the first, from my mentoring. I wanted to just share that the stickers and the design of Hello, My Name Is Not Diversity were made by my friend Michaela, who is absolutely amazing. And so if you need any design, please feel to reach out to her, because she's seriously just like a fantastic human. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.